moving on to the relation between Japan and Indonesia, when we look at the data, Japan is no longer the top 5 investor in Indonesia. So my question is, why?
Well, as you pointed out, investment from Japan has not been that active for the last 2 years, but it's coming back. If you look at the statistics on accumulated basis from January to September this year, Japan is now ranked number 4. And also, if you look at in the details, the number of investment from Japan accounts for more than 2,000, second only to Singapore. And traditionally, our focus was energy and auto sectors, but now more investment in the financial sector as well as property development. So more diversified investment from Japan. And looking into the future, maybe green and digital are 2 important areas for Japanese investment to Indonesia.
Okay, can you share to us a little bit more about this new coming investment to Indonesia from Japan?
Well, for example, as we all say, green and digital, particularly green, after the COP26 in Glasgow, that was a game changer. A lot of countries are talking about carbon neutral, and in the case of Japan, 2050 carbon neutrality. In the case of Indonesia, 2060 carbon neutrality. And in terms of carbon neutrality, I think what kind of energy we will derive from and how fast we can electrify our car industry, these are the areas we need to focus on.
Okay, so electric vehicle cars, maybe is there any plans for Japan to maybe build the factory here in Indonesia?
Well, I'm sure that the Japanese companies are planning to manufacture EVs here in the near future. But if you look at the situation right now, we need more charging facilities and we need to supply more affordable EVs to the market. And also car industry, car and car-related industries employ about 1.26 million people here. And if we do away with combustion engine all night, the substantial number of investment will be lost. So as a bridging technology, many Japanese companies are introducing so-called hybrid technologies. It's a mixture of combustion engine and battery EVs. And also further down the road, we need to think about the fuel cell technology as well as hydrogen technologies. So I think Japanese companies are trying to provide consumers with a variety of cars. And also, as for your information, Toyota is going to produce hybrid cars here in Indonesia from next year. So, and also, in order to promote EVs, battery EV, Toyota is conducting demonstration EV project in Bali. And that's good for the recovery of tourism in Bali. So I think in the near future, you will see more hybrid vehicles and the battery EV from Japan.
Okay, with over 270 million population in the country, how do you see the prospect of EV in Indonesia, and also how Japanese companies can maybe invest more in terms of building the infrastructure needed for EV vehicles?
Well, yes, EV is one thing, but a lot of companies have factories in Java, especially metropolitan Jakarta area. So in order to have fair distribution of latest technology cars, I think we need to have port facilities. And for that matter, Japan focused on Patimban port development. That's a very important port for distribution of goods within Indonesia, as well as exporting goods from Indonesia to the region and going beyond. So, of course, investment in the auto sector is important, but development of port facilities is also all the more important.
Okay, we'll talk more about the Patimban port because that's very interesting. But is there any target for investment from Japan to Indonesia in maybe 2022?
Well, it all depends on the private sector. So I don't really know what sort of target they have. But again, energy sector, auto sector, financial sector, property development, and all the more important is green and digital. I'm sure that as we see increasing recovery trend of Japanese investment to Indonesia, and the recovery trend will continue, I think.
Okay, and apart from that sectors, we know that we have more technology companies now. We have a lot of startups. We have unicorns, decacorns. So, is there maybe any plans or any interests from Japanese companies to maybe invest in our startups?
Well, I'm sure that Indonesia is such a vibrant economy. A lot of young, ambitious startup companies are here. And JETRO, Japan External Trade Organization, is conducting a kind of matchmaking between Japanese investors and startup companies here. It's already just started, and I hope that it can bear fruits in the near future.
Okay, so you see the prospect is actually still
Yes,
very good for the technology sector, yeah, in
I think
Indonesia.
so. I think
Okay,
so.
moving on, Your Excellency, we know that the most significant project between Japan and Indonesia is the MRT of Jakarta. So can you tell us more about it and what is the progress so far?
Well, I think MRT project is a symbolic project of cooperation between Japan and Indonesia, and our aim is to try to introduce and complete very effective and efficient, environmentally friendly, mass rapid public transportation system in Indonesia. And progress has been, I think, fairly stable. We only completed 1/4 of the entire project. And as this project finally completed, I think more people, Jakartans, are relying on public transportation, I'm sure.
Okay, but how is the negotiation going so far for the phase 2 of the MRT Jakarta?
Well, in any big infrastructure project, there will be problems. And I'm sure that, as I said, we have a common objectives relating to this MRT between Japan and Indonesia. That is having an efficient, effective transportation system here in Jakarta. And so long as we share the common objectives, I'm sure that we can find solutions to whatever the problems we may have now or in the future.
Okay, if we look at now, MRT Jakarta is the first one to be built in the country. So is there any plans in the future from the Japanese government maybe to build more transportations in Indonesia, maybe in other cities?
Well, it all depends on the needs of Indonesian side. If there is a need from Indonesia, we will certainly look into the prospect seriously.
Why is Japanese interested to build ports in Indonesia? And also you mentioned about Palembang just now.
I think as a huge archipelagic nation, port facility is very important for Indonesia. And as I said, for now, we are focusing on Palembang port development. And Japanese companies would like to make Indonesia as one of the production hubs as well as export base of the region.